All right, here we are on a video chat with Bob Carbonell, because on Race Across America, everybody knows him as Bob, not Robert, not President, but Bob Carbonell. Um, so, how many? Or let's go back. So, what is RAM?
RAM is the Race Across America, and it starts in Oceanside, California, and it ends in Annapolis, Maryland. And the RAM, the Race Across America, has actually been around for 33 years, and it started out as a solo ride, to where it was just solo riders, all by themselves, racing from the West Coast to the East Coast. And throughout those 30 years, there's been a lot of different routes. Sometimes they started up in Oregon, Washington, sometimes Northern California. In the last decade or so, we've been starting in Southern California. And probably about 15 or 20 years ago, they introduced the team event, which is what I've done over the last few years. And and so anyway, it's a cross-country bicycle race that's been around for 33 years, and just challenges riders.
So, out of those 33 years, how many years have you been involved with RAM?
I've been involved, my first year was 2005, when I was on an 8-man team, and it was myself and seven other guys that I worked with at Palo Verde. And that year the race went from San Diego to New Jersey. I just forgot the name of it. To Atlantic City, from San Diego to Atlantic City, New Jersey. And we did an 8-man RAM then, and we learned a whole lot about how not to do RAM, a little bit how to do it, but how not to do RAM. But had a good time, and then came back in 2007 with 3 other riders from that same team. So it was myself and 3 other riders. And in 2007, that was the year that we went from Oceanside, but this time we also ended up in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And I really thought that RAM was done for me. I'd done completed an 8-man and a 4-man, and in 2009 I was invited to be on an 8-person team from Team Donate Life. So I was on an 8-person team there, and then that's where I met Jared Ellison and his family. In 2010, they asked me to crew for his son's team, Connor's Hope, who was a young man that has suffered from liver disease, and so I was a crew member on that team in 2010. 2011, I was asked to be on another Team Donate Life team, a 4-person team, and that's where I met Ryan Ellison, who remains a good friend of mine today. And then in 2012, I was asked to be on another Team Donate Life 4-man team, and that was with Troy Hull, Troy Yost, and Doug Philbrick. And it was after that 2012 that Troy Hull and I kind of became friends during that race. And then last year, I got a hold of him mid-time, probably June, July timeframe, and asked if he was interested in a 2-man RAM. And he said he was, and so here we are, 2014. It'll be my 6th time riding the race and my 7th participation in the race.
Well, this will be the first time you've ever done a 2-man RAM. What do you expect to be the biggest difference between a 4-man or an 8-man versus the 2-man RAM?
Well, I think when I rode the 4-man RAM, I thought it was at least twice as hard as the 8-man, maybe even more than twice as hard. And so I really never imagined I would do a 2-man RAM, because I thought, can I really even double that difficulty? But I think really the difference between the 2-man and the 4-man is just you got to ride more. You know, you have to ride twice as much. But I think the biggest challenge, and maybe change a little bit, will be the intensity at which you ride. Obviously, the 2-man speeds across the United States are not equal to what the 4-person teams are, and so I think that the biggest difference is going to be a little bit in the way we ride, more of an endurance pace rather than a speed pace like our 4-man was. We did our 4-man. The fastest was 2012 with Troy and Doug, and we did it in 6 days, 3 hours. And for us, that was pretty good. That was a pretty good race. And so this year, what do I think Troy and I can do? Well, I don't think we can do 6 days and 3 hours, but I think we can. I think we can do pretty close. I think we can get. We can beat 7 days at least and get into that 6-day time frame. But the biggest difference is just a lot more miles, a little less intensity, and just the next level of difficulty, I guess.
So what's the allure that keeps bringing you back to doing a race of this magnitude?
You know, I guess a couple of things. I think that it's important that we try things, that we try hard things. You know, a lot of us can go through. A lot of people go through their lives, and maybe they like to be a spectator on the side, and they like to watch other people do hard things. But I think it's important that we do hard things. And some people, hard things is you know, is going to the next level with a music career. Some people, hard things might be, you know, doing better at their artwork or their craft or whatever they are. Some things, hard things, are physical things, and so I like those physical things, and I just think it's important that we do hard things in our life. I also think it's important that we experience those things so that we challenge ourselves and test ourselves, and I think that's what keeps bringing me back to RAAM, is just the challenge and the test.
So for those who have never experienced a race across America, can you tell us a little about the details? Like, how does it work as far as when do you find time to sleep, or what do you eat to stay healthy while you're giving up that much energy across the race and those kind of things?
Well, the race is really a relay race. A lot of people are a little confused by the RAAM, the team event. They kind of think first that we break it up. Maybe Troy would ride, you know, for the state of California. Maybe I'd ride Arizona. He'd do Colorado. That's not how RAAM is at all. I mean, you can do it that way if that's what you choose to do. But in order to keep the speed up for the teams, it's really a relay. So if you imagine two runners that are running around a track with a baton, you know, it's easy for one man to run one lap around the track, but if they decide that the two men are going to run 1,000 laps around the track, but they have to keep the baton going, they can keep their speed up if they each do one lap and pass it to the other, or one lap, pass it to the other, so that you can kind of keep your speed up and not slow yourself down. And that's kind of how RAAM is. It's a little bit shorter what we call pulls. You know, some two-man teams do pulls, you know, 30 or 40 miles apiece, some longer, some shorter. And so the race starts Saturday at noontime, and it ends when you cross the finish line in Annapolis. And so you're on the road 24 hours a day until you cross the finish line in Annapolis. So some teams will sleep in the crew, or the riders will sleep in motels. Some of the riders will sleep in a motor home that goes along with the team. And some teams, the riders will actually just sleep in their own van, and where when they get off the bike, they go in the van and they lay down and sleep while the other person's on the bike. So there's two ways to look at it. If there's two riders riding 24 hours a day, well, you might be riding 12 hours a day, but you might be sleeping 12 hours a day. So it's just it just depends on how you want to handle that. When you said what do you eat, most of it is going to be a liquid diet, a lot of good liquid calories with a lot of you know, carbohydrates and proteins and vitamins and minerals. You have to take in a lot of calories. Figure for a two-man RAAM, each day you're probably going to need anywhere from 7 to maybe even 10,000 calories a day. And it can't be junk food. It's got to be good, healthy food. And so in order to keep your performance up, you have to eat good, healthy foods.
Perfect. So you've known you're going to be doing this two-man RAAM for a year. First off, you can answer how long you've known you're going to be doing this for, And so, knowing you're going to be preparing for this epic event, how do you train for that?
The training is some ways is the most difficult part of RAM because it takes up so much of your life and of your time. The training is basically 4 and 5 days a week. Pretty hard, a lot of miles on the bike. Some riders will get a coach, and I've had a coach a couple of times in my previous races. Other riders will be able to kind of try to do it on their own. And so really the training is just a lot of time on the bike, maybe some time in the gym doing some weight training and some core workouts and those kind of things. But it's I think for most RAM riders, they usually start out about a year before and start prepping for the race, and that's exactly what both Troy and I did. We really started last July and started slowly building up and training for the race.
You use the term race a lot. Is it really a race, or are you just competing against yourself? Are you, how much of it is a true race, like a traditional race we would think of?
Well, I think the first time I did the 8-man, we called it a race, but we were really just kind of competing against ourselves to see if we could do it. The first time I did a 4-man, I would say it was kind of the same thing. It was really more just against ourselves. But now that I've done this, now that I've ridden it 5 times, it's definitely a race. There's no question that right now there are there's a total of 13 2-man teams that are in the RAM this year. And out of those 13 teams, I hope to be competitive and at least get a top 3 out of those 13 teams as we race across the country.
So where can people follow the race to find out how you're doing, if you're winning the race or how that's all going?
So the Race Across America has a website, raceacrossamerica.org, and when you go to that website, if you click on the link that says Race Results, it will show you exactly how we're progressing through the race. And what confuses a lot of people, I guess, is the race actually has 57 what we call time stations. So the Race Across America is broken up. About every 50 miles there's a time station, and the time station can be a store, a gas station, a motel, something along that line. So every time the riders and that team crosses that time station, they call into RAM headquarters and they check in with RAM. This is the Friends of Freedom Believed to Achieve team, and we're at time station 1 or time station 2. RAM logs that, so every team that's going through, as soon as they call, RAM updates their website. So as you're watching us go across the country, you'll be able to see exactly when we checked into which time station and when the other teams checked into time stations. And as the race progresses, you'll start to see the leading teams will get 2, 3, 4, and 5 time stations ahead of some of the trailing teams. And so that's where we hope to be in that top 3, staying ahead on those time stations as we go across the country. Hey, Kathy, would you bring me the chart?
Is there any way for people?
Go ahead.
We'll let you plug in for a second.
Well,
is there any way for people?
Sorry.
Somebody break in?
I see the lamp on the floor.
Mom dropped something and it set off the glass break alarm. Anyway, okay. All right, we're ready.
So is there any way for people to, besides following along just a dot on a map, is there any way for people to follow along with the race in any other forms?
Nope. Yeah, we have. We're going to be posting on Facebook. We're going to be posting on Facebook on a regular basis. That'll be tracking us. We've also thought a little bit about doing some GPS tracking through my Garmin that I've got on my bicycle thought, we're trying to figure out exactly how we can do that, and we may be able to post that onto our Facebook page just so people can follow us across the United States. And then obviously our crew will be using, social media such as Twitter and Instagram, posting pictures and comments along the way, so people will start to be able to see and follow the whole team as we go across the United States. And where are they at tonight? Where are they at today? I think what amazes most people is how fast a few guys can cross the country on bicycles. When we start in Oceanside at noon on Saturday, most people are surprised that by Sunday evening we should be leaving Flagstaff, Arizona, and by Monday morning we'll be into Utah. And I think most people are just surprised that a couple guys on bikes can cross the country that fast.
Click over. Yeah, I know the first time I did it, I was definitely surprised by how fast we were moving. It's probably faster than some people can do in cars. So you talk about a team and about your crew. How many people are actually on your team? We talk about it's a two-man Ram, but how many people are actually on this team that takes to get across the country?
So the team is a total of 13 people. You've got 2 riders, and this year we have 11 crew. And that surprises a lot of people. It's like 11 crew. What are these crew going to be doing? Well, the crew are the key to a successful race across America. Most of us riders, we ride our bikes and we get out there and some are fast or some are slow. But without the crew, there isn't one rider would ever make it across the United States. So what our crew does, they navigate for us, because the crew's got to follow the rider all the way across the United States. And it's a predetermined race route. Well, the crew knows exactly what that race route is. They know what every turn is. They know where every time station is. They've got to know everything that's happening on the race, and they keep track of all that stuff to the for the rider. So all the rider has to do is ride his bike. So if we're coming into a small town or even a big town, and we come to an intersection, the crew will be able to tell the rider which way to go, turn right, left, or straight. And the crew guides the rider all the way across the United States. The crew helps the rider in rider transitions. So when one rider is getting ready to go into the race and he's getting out of the van, the crew will get his bike down off the rack. They'll make sure his water bottles are full, his tires are pumped up, make sure his lights are on, his headlight and his tail light, and that everything's ready to go. So when that rider is ready to ride, all the rider has to do is sit on the bike, step on the bike, and start pedaling. When the rider gets done with his race, with his pull, the crew is the one that takes the bike from the rider, makes sure the bike gets properly on the rack, make sure the rider has their whatever food that they need, and everything's taken care of when they go into the van. So the crew really they are the key to a successful Ram. And it takes 11 crew, just because if you think about it, the crew, as they're trying to follow this race across the United States, they have to get sleep too. And the rider has the luxury that every time the rider's in the vehicle, the rider can close their eyes and sleep. The crew doesn't have that luxury. They're either driving or navigating. So the crew, many times when it comes to sleep deprivation and being tired, can be as challenged, if not more challenged, than the rider. So Ram is definitely not an easy race for any member of the team. So anybody that goes on Ram as a crew and thinks, well, we're just going to sit here at 18, 19 miles an hour behind a bicycle riding across the country, it couldn't be further from the truth. And I'm sure you'll attest to that.
Absolutely. So you talk about going all the way across the country. What are some of your favorite parts about that idea of going across the country on a bike? Favorite scenic parts, or least favorite? What are some of the hardest parts about that?
Well, I think my favorite part is just being out, seeing the United States, and seeing the people along the way. The people, for the most part, people in the United States are a very friendly group. We get a lot of help, or a lot of people waving to us. They're happy to see us. They encourage us, and they cheer us on. For the most part, in the month of June, the weather's pretty good across the United States. It's a little bit cold in Colorado. A lot of times we'll be riding down into the low to mid 30s during the nighttime and into the morning. The big hills, the big mountains we climb in Colorado, those are always fun. I always enjoy that. Kansas, the best part of Kansas is when you're leaving Kansas. It's just flat, windy, and it's just not very fun. And it's a long state. If you look at the United States and you look at all the states, Kansas is about the longest east to west state there is, and it's about I don't know, 400 or 500 miles and nothing but crosswinds. And so that Kansas is no fun. I'm always glad when we leave Kansas. You start to get into Missouri, and you start to get, there's some fun in Missouri. The roads are a little different. The drivers are a little different. You start to see all the different kind of bugs and all the critters running in and out of the woods and stuff like that. So Missouri is kind of neat. Probably some of my favorite parts, though, of Ram is when you start to get into Illinois, because you start to see all the lightning bugs and all the stuff of Illinois, and by then usually the things are flattening out a little bit. Sometimes we get pretty good tailwinds through Illinois and parts of Indiana, and that's always enjoyable. But once you start to get into West Virginia, I enjoy West Virginia just because it's so different, and it's so different than anything I'm used to here in Arizona. So the whole West Virginia Appalachians is just nothing but steep hills. They may not be long like the Rockies, but they're tougher than the Rockies. A lot of people don't understand or realize that there's more climbing in the Appalachians than the Rockies. Probably my least favorite part about Ram, besides Kansas, is the humidity of the East Coast. When we talk about in Arizona, it's a dry heat. Couldn't be further from the truth. It is a dry heat. But that 95-degree temperature and 95% humidity in Maryland, it's tough, and it's just something you just have to get through. But I enjoy really every aspect of the race. It's just a great challenge and a great way to see the United States, and it's good. It's a good vacation. I recommend it to anybody.
Well, they say the race does, right? Just to wrap it up,
because that's the halfway point, and that's where most of the teams, if the teams aren't functioning well, most crews can make it to the Mississippi River, and if they're not functioning well, that's when they start to come apart. And if your crew starts to come apart, the whole race will come apart. So the key is a good crew, a well-functioning crew, and a happy crew, and a rested crew. If you can get all those things together, then the Mississippi is just another milestone to cross. If you can't get those things together, then the Mississippi could be the end of the race.
Perfect. Well, just to wrap it up, you aren't just racing for fun or just to race. There's also a big charity element involved in that. And this year, the charity is Friends of Freedom. Can you tell us a little bit about Friends of Freedom?
Friends of Freedom is a charitable organization that was started by David Haddad. And David is not a military veteran, but he wanted to find something that he could do as just an American citizen in order to reach out and to help veterans. And it's not just veterans of the current conflicts, it's any veteran from any era. And so what he did, he started this charity, the Friends of Freedom, several years ago, and he's put on a lot of events that have raised money to help benefit veterans. He has traveled over to Iraq and Afghanistan and has spent time and brought gifts to the veterans. And over here in the United States, he's put on several events that have benefited the veterans. One of the things that they did here about a year ago was they took a group of vets on a hike to Mount Kilimanjaro. It was something that these men and women wanted to do. They had wanted to try to do something like this for a long time, and David was able to put together some of the sponsors in order to help these folks, just to try to start feeling like they're a little bit normal, getting themselves back into civilian life, those that just recently came back from Afghanistan. And so we teamed up with David Haddad and the Friends of Freedom, and we're hoping to get the word out, to get people a little bit more aware of their charity, and to help David as he helps those returning veterans.
if someone wants to donate to Friends of Freedom or this Race Across America, how would they go about helping support this effort?
Well, one of the things they can do, we've got our webpage, Friends of Freedom RAM. So that's Friends of Freedom RAAN.com. And if you go there, there's a donation page. There's a donation button that will actually take you to the Friends of Freedom website and their donate page. And that's probably the best way to do it. Otherwise, if you see any of the member of the team, any of us, whether it be cash or check donation, that would work also. But probably best just to go to our website, friendsofreedomram.com, and click on the donate link.
Perfect. I did say one more thing, but I'm going to add one more. I forgot this with Troy as well. Can you just tell us a little bit about you? Who is Robert Carbonneau, or Bob Carbonneau as they call you on RAM?
You know, I'm a dad, I'm a grandfather, just an average guy that just likes to ride his bike and just kind of found a passion and looks for a challenge here and there in his life, and then decided to make RAM something that would challenge me. Love my wife and my family and my grandkids. They're definitely the most important part of my life. I've worked out at the Palo Verde Nuclear Power Plant in Arizona. I've been there with that company for 31 years. Born and raised in the state of Arizona, and just really enjoy the state. But that's really it. Not a lot of complexity. Pretty simple guy. Just like my family, and like my bike, and like the challenges.
Perfect. I guess I'll give you last word. Is there any last words you'd like to leave for anybody watching this?
All I can think of is just you know, if you're sitting there wondering, thinking how could I ever ride my bike across the country, or how could I ever do this or do that? There was a time that I never imagined even riding 100 miles on a bike, much less across the United States. And how did I get that first 100 miles? I got on a bike and I just started riding. And before I knew it, I could do 20 miles, and then 30, and then 50, and 70, and then I did my first 100. Anybody can do that. It doesn't matter what it is. Set a goal, start small, and start moving forward, and you'll be amazed at what you can accomplish.
Awesome. Well, good luck on RAM. It's right around the corner, and hopefully we'll get a lot of people following along. So thanks for your time.
It is. All right, thanks.